Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and it is time to unveil Crabbid reinforcements. This is a completely unofficial homebrewed expansion that I have made for you guys, and it's a 9-card print and play expansion. It's not going to be tournament legal, but you're certainly more than welcome to use all of these cards on your home games. Just make sure your opponent is cool with using them, and let me know what you guys think. This is my Christmas present to all of you, and we're gonna run through these cards and talk about them a little bit, and I'll talk about some of the process behind them and how I sort of envision them. So we're gonna do that, and so if you guys haven't already, make sure you are subscribed. We still have the lightsaber giveaway, 12 days of life day, any of the giveaways that I'm doing. You just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. That's how we do it, and it's a fun thing. It helps the channel grow. Helps also if you're subscribed and you do like Star Wars games, you're more likely to get recommended more Star Wars type videos, be it mine or other content creators and other things similar. So subscribing to your interests is also another good way to make sure the algorithm keeps giving you stuff that you may be interested in. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in. First off, I think we've already previewed this one. We did a preview earlier called the Duranium Armor plating. This one is a defensive retrofit. It's 4 points. It's just flat out increasing your hull value by 1, but it's also a modification. I wanted something, I wanted a defensive retrofit that small ships would consider taking, that might, but might be viable on some other ships, on the larger ships, while they can take it also. It's certainly a big opportunity cost. One, that it's a modification, and two, the larger ships tend to have only one defensive retrofit, and they usually want to use that for something like ECM, whereas on a CR90 that usually just says, oh, that's a wasted slot, I'm not going to put anything there. This one actually could make that CR90 a little bit more survivable. So that was something that I was looking at for the modification there, and that's Duranium Armor plating. Next up, we have an ordnance upgrade. This is going to be Contraband Stash. This one is transport only. Again, we're trying to I was trying to kind of hone in on those new starship traits, those new starship keywords that are out there ever since the Clone Wars has come out, and we haven't really been able to do very much with those since there's no other new content out there to actually take advantage of those or to hook into those words. And so I thought this would be a great way to have a card that might be a little strong if you could put it just anywhere. But so this way, having it be transport only will limit it a little bit and allow for maybe certain ships that you might not have taken that you maybe want to take a second look at. It's a 5-point card. It said when you would discard a card for any reason, you may discard this card instead. The idea here is that you're hiding some, in your torpedo tubes, you're hiding extra stuff, extra supplies, contraband, and things of that nature. So anything that you need, we've got a stash. We can take care of that. So you can basically use this instead. This could be used, if Vader had to choke out an officer, or if you had external racks, if you had maybe double ordnance. So it'd be harder to do this with external racks. You'd need both double ordnance and transport, right? Or if your opponent has a card that's going to get rid of a card of yours, like Darth Vader Officer or the Onager title. So there's different ways that this could be useful, and it also can allow for some pretty interesting combos and setups with stuff that would be normally one time per game, that this could potentially extend into a second time per game. Of course, again, limiting it to transport only definitely narrows in the field of view. Next up, we have the Brilliant Engineer. We talked a little bit about this guy earlier. He's an officer. He will only travel on the finest accommodations, so he's restricted to transport only. He is 6 points. He's a little expensive. When you would discard a defense token for any reason, you may discard this card instead. So here is someone who is going to allow you to brace and maybe get that brace back. Even if it were to be gone, whether or not you're discarding it on purpose, or your opponent is forcing you, like they're doing, they're doing like a Sloan attack against you, and it's getting rid of your brace. Now all of a sudden you can get rid of this card instead. It's a replacement effect for that purpose. And now a lot of people are thinking, oh goodness, I could also get rid of this. Could help me save my scatter. And that would be true if it weren't transport only. So again, that hook, that tie-in right there really helps restrict the usefulness on a card that might be overpowered if it didn't have the transport only restriction. Next up, we have long-range shells. This one was, I was trying to do something a little different with the turbo laser option, and this one is restricted to bombard only. I wanted to think about what would bombard be able to potentially do, and it's got an effect that can make it incredibly powerful. So, however, the restriction to bombard does limit what it can do. So it's an exhaustible red critical effect. It says exhaust this card if the defender is not at close range. The defender suffers 1 damage. This occurs once for each red critical in the pool. So this is similar to the super weapon that onagers can use that lets, for however many criticals you're able to get, it does extra damage. This one's is sort of doing that, but it doesn't work at closer range. Like the shells haven't had time to arm. Now it can work at medium range, but it works at medium or long range, and it excels at long range. And this is certainly something that has the potential. I mean, out of all the ships that have bombard, most of them have only 2 red dice. In any given arc, but there are a few that have 3 red dice, so it does have a high potential ceiling. So we have a couple of costs. It's 6. It's not adding dice, so it's a little expensive for a critical effect, just a little bit. But it also it exhausts and requires a concentrate fire token to ready again. So this one, but of course you can always wait to use it until you have the right critical effect. So you have that sort of option as well on when you do and do not use it. So if you are able to roll, maybe you just have like 2 criticals in there, well that could be 2 extra damage that they're taking. And of course this is something that it's a critical effect that will also come into effect if the opponent still has shields up, whereas normally a lot of times it wouldn't always work. Especially at long range, a lot of those are black dice effects, and also I wanted something that could potentially go on certain ships that might want to have multiple criticals. There's certain weapons teams out there that like the fire control team. I wanted something that might kind of work into that and say, hey, I want to have another critical, but I want this one also, and although I don't want it to be too broken, to also work with the close range attacks. So it gives some flexibility there, and gives a different type of red critical, which we don't see a whole lot of red critical effects. Next up, the calibrated targeting grid. This one is a little on the expensive side, is because of the fact that it can min-max into certain other ship combinations that really want to go heavily offensive. It's an offensive retrofit that's 5 points. It is exhaustible. It says, when attacking a ship with speed equal to yours, you may exhaust this card to reroll 1 die. So you can reroll a die each turn. When I was talking about this, I know some people said, I mentioned if you're using it with the Empire, you might be able to use the Interdictor title to ready it. That's certainly a possibility. However, it's one of those things that I think it's more strong. It's probably not worth 5 points on every ship that can take it, but it can be really useful on some of the ships that can take it, especially like some of the Star Destroyers out there with offensive retrofit and some of the more heavy attack platforms, because most offensive retrofits weren't really truly offensive. A lot of offensive retrofits are strictly squadron based, and while squadrons certainly can be offensive, I wanted a offensive retrofit that was going to work more with a purely offensive build, but it also had to have a couple of restrictions. And so that's what we came up with for calibrated targeting grid. Next up is a really interesting card. It's called Propulsion Team. This one is very much a corner case. I don't imagine this one will be taken in too many builds, but it is the idea that a lot of times a ship will get stuck, and we've seen ships can go backwards. I wanted to be able to have a ship go backwards, if you've played the Summa of all things, that the beast there can go backwards. And I just didn't. I thought there's no good reason why you shouldn't be able to go backwards, but at the same time that could have some game mechanic functionality. So I thought of let's come up with a way to make this work. And so it says it's a support team. It only costs 3, so it's not particularly expensive. It says if your speed is 0 and you did not move or attack this activation, you may perform a speed 1 reverse maneuver with a yaw of 0. So it lets you do a single back up. The idea for this is I wanted people to be able to back up, but also I had to think about where could this be abused maybe the most. And so I thought, I think onagers are somebody that would want to use this, or maybe a ship that goes a little too far forward and gets stuck kind of getting ready to fly off the board. I thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if there was a way to back up? Now your speed will still be 0, but it's going to allow you to do a reverse, and then maybe you can, if you have nav planned for next turn as well, now you can actually do it. But you have to have a nav team, so you have to be feeding them. You can't just be speed 0 and do engineering and then go backwards. Also, it's going to require that you did not move or attack this activation. Now, move this activation is just future proofing in case somebody, or just for any kind of shenanigans, like with engine techs or any kind of stuff like that. But also, or if there was any kind of scenario, whatever, that lets you move and then adjust speed, in the middle of your activation. But the bigger idea here is that I didn't want the onagers to be able to fire their ignition attack and then back up and kind of play keep away. So that's why I say if you did not attack. Well, there's probably no good thematic reason that you couldn't fire some turbo lasers while backing up, but I felt like that could lead to a negative gameplay experience. So the idea is when this propulsion team is working, he needs all the power to throw those engines into reverse, and they had to divert power from the weapons in order to do that, because it's an Ugnaught. He didn't work on this Star Destroyer. Maybe he didn't work on this ship initially, and he's just like, no, we're going to do it my way, and I'm taking power from all your subsystems to do it. So that's how it works. Next up, I have an elite gunner. Here is a weapons team that is only 3 points. It says when attacking, you may discard this card to change 1 die to any side. Now, here's a cool option for, not every ship really wants to have or needs to have gunnery teams, but I also wanted a different option, because the 2 main weapons teams that we see are ordnance experts and gunnery team. It's just kind of it most of the time. And I wanted something that would still help you out offensively in a different kind of way. And this one works different than both of those. However, it is expendable. Now, the cool thing is we have already seen other cards in this set that will deal with an expendable card and say, no, you can discard that one instead. So I have the potential, to be able to make your elite gunner work 2 times in a game if you wanted to combine it with your Contraband Stash or something like that. But I thought that this is it can be a powerful swing on a single die, and it can potentially also work on a squadron attack, because this isn't restricted to only attacking ships. And the idea that this is maybe like a gunner who's getting ready to retire, and so some of the new gunners came out, some of the younger guys came on board and said, hey, you think you got some good stuff, old man? And he's like, I'll show you. I got one last good shot in me that's going to put you all to shame. And so that's kind of what he's doing here. And then he retires after he's done. I've got the DR-232 antenna array. This one is a offensive retrofit. It costs 5 points. It says while attacking an enemy ship, you may remove a raid token from that ship to add a blue die to your attack pool. So this is adding a die, which is definitely a powerful effect, and it's not a modification. And so naturally that's like, wow, it's just very, very expensive, or this is very, this is crazy. How can you just be adding a die and have it not be a modification? Well, first off, it has 2 incredibly restrictive criteria to it. It's Star Destroyer only, and it also requires raid tokens. And so and while most of the Star Destroyers you're going to find are in the Empire, there are a few in the Republic, but neither of those factions really do a whole lot with raid tokens. And I thought, wouldn't this be a cool way to give raid some meaning to some factions that don't have it, or that don't really care about it? Wouldn't it be a cool way to make the Gauntlet fighters actually viable again? Wouldn't it be cool to do something like that? And so, you know, that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to see happen and I thought this would be an interesting way to do that because it allows a raid token. Now, there's a lot of ways to combat this. Of course, you know, if you're defending against something like this, you just spend your dial, get rid of all your raid tokens, and they're not going to be able to add any dice to their attack pool by doing that. But it just otherwise, you know, like I feel like the Separatists are really the only faction in game right now that really can make raid work for them, and I wanted to have other ways, and this kind of allows two other factions to have some access to raid, and I feel like the Rebels are close, but I didn't want to make something that was too strong, so the Rebels aren't going to have access to this because they don't have Star Destroyers, at least not yet. Maybe someday they'll get one. And lastly, we have the the Ion Vortex Cannons. This is an Ion cannon. It's 9 points. It says, while attacking a ship, if you have exactly 2 hit results, you may cancel all attack dice. If you do, the defending hull zone loses 2 shields. And so the idea for this is to make some weaker shots that are able to still get some, you know, get some positive effects through, because you can do this before your you know, it's while attacking, so you can do this before your opponent has a chance to spend defense tokens. So you can roll your dice, look at them, it's like, all right, do I want to modify my dice? Oh, you know what, let me cancel all of my dice because I'm going to do this effect to you. Now, it's not a super strong effect, but it is a moderately strong effect. It's certainly only going to work when your opponent has shields up. But one of the things I liked about this is that it's also an ion cannon that it's not linked directly to blue dice. It can be any type of dice, but you have to have exactly 2 hits. Now, what that means is nothing other than 2 hits. So you can't have the use case for this is exactly 2 hit results. You can have blanks, but you can't have accuracies, and you can't have crits in there. You have to have exactly 2 hit results. And one of the cool things is I had an idea in mind with this, and I feel like it can work on any number of ships, but it may not be that great in too many places. But I thought long and hard about this one, and I thought to myself, you know, might this be a possible way to make the interdictor combat refit viable again? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I don't think it's enough to make it particularly strong again. But I think the interdictor combat refit, taking something like this, could at least put it to really good use. First off, the ship has 2 red dice in all of its front and side arcs, and so now all of a sudden it has the ability to make this work probably better than most ships at long range. And potentially make it work twice, because it's very easy for an interdictor to have 2 different shots, especially the interdictor combat refit doing something like this. Even if it's obstructed, it could always potentially concentrate fire to try to guarantee that. With rolling 2 red dice, you have a pretty decent chance of having exactly 2 hit results. And so I thought that was a really interesting way to kind of look at that. And I didn't want to just say, oh, well, this is an interdictor combat retrofit only upgrade card, because to me, like, that's not... I don't like doing something like that, because it feels like now it's a fix directly to a card, whereas... you know, it's like a staple or a surgery on a card almost. Whereas here's just an upgrade that happens to work well. You know, like, I had to ask myself, what's the interdictor combat refit's strengths? In that it can fairly consistently throw 2 red dice out on one ship, and then 2 red dice out on another ship. The other thing that I thought about is this, but it also has 2 anti-squadron dice, so it could roll 2 dice against a squadron, but at the same time, squadrons don't have shields, and I didn't want it to be overpowered against squadrons, so this was designed particularly to be an anti-ship ability. Now, it also isn't going to be too overpowered, because, again, once that ship's shields are down, then this one won't really be doing much else. But I thought it'd be kind of cool to have an effect that could come in before defense tokens are spent. And so that's where we came up with this, because if you can make them lose 2 shields, then I think you've done a good job, because you've stopped any effects that would happen from brace, or evade or scatter and things like that. But at the same time, the opponent gets to choose where they lose their shields, right? Or no, actually they don't, because it's the defending hull zone. So you are, then they're going to have to do maybe some engineering the next time. So that's the ion vortex cannons, and that's Crabbid reinforcements. I was always hoping to see a rapid reinforcements 2 that would have more upgrade cards that could go anywhere, and that would give us even more versatility than we got with Rapid Reinforcements 1. And I kind of just got tired of waiting for it, so I decided to kind of put my feet forward and see what I could come up with. And I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? And let's talk about it. Also, if you guys haven't already, make sure you join our Discord. We got a great family-friendly Discord. We talk about games like Armada, X-Wing, Legion, Shatterpoint, Marvel Crisis Protocol, you name it. So hop in there, jump on social media, and all that other cool stuff. So that's about it for today's video. We are going to be doing a Life Day giveaway, though. Today it's a Star Wars Armada damage deck. This is an organized play 2020, the last Fantasy Flight Armada kit. This was for like I think this was for like top 4 Imperial lists or something like that. So anyway, we got this from Gen Con for the World's qualifying tournaments, and it's just a nice little blue damage deck for your Armada ships, so for your Armada fleets. Our today's winner is going to be Marlos. So congratulations, Marlos. Go ahead and shoot me an email over at mailcrabbok@gmail.com, and I'll get your contact information, and we'll get you squared away. Any of the 12 Days of Life Day winners that don't claim their stuff within 30 days, all of those giveaways are going to roll over into Patreon, and patrons will get a shot at that. Big thanks to my patrons as well. You guys are absolutely outstanding and help make this channel possible. I want to thank you all so much. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. Be good to each other. May the Force be with you. Hakuna Matata. I'll talk to you later.